I think we'll put the sun, let's see, should go, I think, over there, and oh, hi. I was just decorating for eclipse season, the most wonderful, well, not the most wonderful, the most, well, maybe not the most, yeah, no, maybe the most intense time of the year, the time when the FOI, or freaked outedness index, really tends to climb high. And we are coming up to eclipse season now. We have the first eclipse, a solar eclipse, on November 13th. And we should really discuss why I call this eclipse season. So give me just a minute. Okay, now with the help of this sophisticated audiovisual aid, we can see that there's a line on the paper which will represent the average level of freaked outedness, the everyday level of freaked outedness for you, for me, for anybody, our collective freaked outedness. It would never, of course, be straight like that. It jumps up and down because of the moon and because of aspects and so on, but we'll say that that's the average level of freaked outedness. Now, what happens is when there's an eclipse, we get a peak off of that. And it's a little higher than, it's much higher than the average level of freaked outedness. And then we get another peak 2 weeks later, because eclipses come in pairs. There's a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. They're paired together. In this case, the November 13th eclipse is a solar eclipse, and then the one that is 2 weeks later will be the lunar eclipse. But it's not just these 2 points. It's not just these 2 points of boom, we have eclipses. The space between the eclipses, it never really gets back to baseline. You have this kind of, it dips down a little bit. The freaked outedness dips down a little bit between eclipses, but it doesn't really get back to normal. And as a matter of fact, from the lunation before the first eclipse, in this case the full moon on October 27th, we have a general ramping up to the first eclipse. So it's a sort of increase in freaked outedness up to the first eclipse. And it takes all the way until the, in this case, the new moon after the lunar eclipse. We're talking someplace around December 10th or so, for things to get back to the usual level of freaked outedness. And so each day we have a increase in the level of freaked outedness. And this is why I call it the suspension bridge model of eclipses. And that's exactly the way it is. We have 6 weeks of freaked outedness. We have 6 weeks where the level of freaked outedness is high. From the full moon before the first eclipse all the way up to the first eclipse. It dips down just a little bit to the second eclipse, and then it dips down over the next 2 weeks to the basic level of freaked outedness. But it isn't about events, it's about experience. And eclipse time is a time when we feel things very, very intensely. So what I want to do now is to look at how this eclipse cycle, particularly the beginning part, we'll look in another couple of weeks, we'll have another astroblog and look at the lunar eclipse. How does the solar eclipse on November 13th play out for each sign? Solar eclipses are not big explosive types of events. They're more implosive. They sort of pull the energy inwards. They sort of concentrate the energy. It's a more nuclear type of pulling in than it is a sort of expansion and just sort of outwardly freaking out. That's why you kind of feel the solar eclipse a little bit more intensely than the lunar eclipse, because at least the energy gets out on the lunar eclipse, and you can kind of yell at somebody or have somebody yell at you. It's a little more cathartic on the lunar eclipse. The solar eclipse tends to have that sort of, right before the thunderstorm type of feel to it. So it can be more intense, although less active in a sort of obvious way. At any rate, I'll tell you how each sign might feel this, and it's true for the sun sign, it's true for the ascendant or rising sign, but to tell you the truth, it can be true, for the moon or anything that happens to be around that particular point in the chart. Anything that's in that sign. And don't let me tell you what to freak out about or how to freak out. You want to freak out about something completely different, you go right ahead and do it. There's probably an astrological reason for it, or maybe not. Maybe it's just what you're dealing with now. The eclipse will just make anything seem bigger and badder. So freak out about what you want to freak out about. If you don't want to freak out at all, more power to you. Now, Scorpio. This eclipse is happening in your sign of Scorpio, so the eclipse is really asking you, what's it about for you? What's important to you? What do you want to do? Where are you going? Where are you concentrating your energy? How do you see yourself going forward? It may look like it's about career or your partner or any of those other things that we think about, finances, but it's really about you. What direction do you want your life to take? Now, Sagittarius, you might feel kind of a vague energy about this. This is also kind of about you. You're going to kind of get that when the full moon lunar eclipse happens in 2 weeks. But for right now, it might seem like a sort of vague energy. You're not quite sure what it is you're concerned about, but you're kind of concerned. Capricorn, long-term goals, where you're going in the long term, where you see yourself accomplishing things in the world externally, who your friends are also is another thing to think about. I know that sounds a little abstract, but for Capricorn that's very concerned about going forward and looking at the future, this could actually be kind of a little bit of a difficult eclipse because it brings into question what that end goal is. You're great at climbing towards it, but how is that, but what is that thing that you're climbing towards? Aquarius and Leo. I mean Leo and Aquarius, of course. I'm pairing you guys together for this because I think that there is a sort of pairing that goes on. This is either or both about family and career. So it could very much be a family type of issue, particularly for Leo, or home, that type of thing. With Saturn in the sign of Scorpio, we're going to be dealing with that for a while anyway. And Aquarius, maybe a little bit more towards career. But for both of you, the meditation here is one of relevancy. Who are you in the world? Where are you going? Not so much in the way of what is the long-term plan, but really where are you now? Are you connecting with others? And, we always tell people to be themselves, to go their own way, to do their own thing. And with Uranus in Aries, you're certainly feeling a lot of that. Uranus is certainly helping you to do that. The question is, do you have relevancy? Are you connecting with others? That's the difference between being creative, innovative, an entrepreneur, an artist on the one hand, and being one of those people with, the coat hangers and the aluminum foil trying to contact the mothership on the other hand. So you may be feeling either A, am I being too eccentric that I'm not connecting with others? Or B, is it the case that I'm not really being myself and doing my own thing? Am I sort of a little too much on the conforming, play it safe side? And of course, you can shuttle back and forth between these two things if you want. But that question of relevancy is very big for you on one level, and then just home and career on another. Pisces. I don't want to say that you get a pass on this, Pisces, but you might kind of get a pass on this particular eclipse. It's not very intense for Pisces. The issue might have more to do with things like education, travel, philosophy, things like that. Aries, this could be a little bit difficult. It could be about finances. It could be about finances in the big picture. It could be about somebody else's money. It could be about emotional stuff that you really kind of don't want to deal with. Mostly finances, emotions. The basic thing is control. This is really about control. And you may not feel that you have as much of it as you like, which is kind of scary. You've got Uranus in your sign telling you that you can kind of control everything, and here's a little bit of a shaky ground for you. Could be a little bit of an issue. Now, we get to Taurus. Taurus. Hello, Taurus. See the person sitting next to you over there on the couch, yeah? Your partner. It could be about your partner. You could be worried about your partnership. You could be getting a little bit of a sort of a vague feeling or maybe an explicit feeling of worry from your partner. Gemini, work, health, these general sort of day-to-day issues that can be bothersome might be bothersome to you right now. Cancer, I know you hate to hear it's always about family or something, but it could be about your children. It could also be about your creativity. Virgo, you also kind of get a pass. With Mercury retrograde, I think you might be a little bit worried about stuff on a day-to-day basis. Again, work, friends, siblings type of thing, but not such a big deal. Libra, it could be about finances, and I know how that can be scary for any of us because finances are what make everything else run. Again, we're more likely to be freaked out about these things than to have real hardcore problems, and you might freak out about something else entirely. It's up to you. I'll visit you in 2 weeks and we'll talk about the full moon eclipse.